Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you doing today? Happy last day of 2018. I hope you guys are having a fantastic New Year's if you're just starting it like I am, or if you're done with it, I hope it was fantastic. I hope 2019 is wonderful for everybody and that you have an amazing night and day tomorrow. What am I doing to wrap up 2018 with you? Well, I'm going to wrap up my December reading. I figure that's a good way to end 2018. Talk to you about the books that I read in the last month of the year. I had a pretty good reading month. I didn't read as much as usual. There was the vacation in there, and I don't tend to read a ton while I am at my parents'. I'm spending time with family and my nieces and my nephew, and yeah, there's not as much reading time. And I want to apologize already. You can hear probably the congestion in my voice. So I apologize that I probably sound a little bit hoarse and nasally right now. But I did read some pretty darn good books. And I'm going to talk to you guys about them today. Hopefully get them all on your TBR. So as I say, get out your pen, get out your paper, get out your Goodreads, guys and gals. Because I want you to put all of these books on your list. First book that I'm going to tell you about is The Golden State. Now, this is a debut novel by Lydia Kiesling. This is the story of Daphne. Now, Daphne is married to a man who is here on a green card from Turkey, and due to something that happened at the airport, he has been returned to Turkey and is stuck in sort of this paperwork limbo getting back. They have a young daughter who is sort of the center of Daphne's life. Now, Daphne works at a university in an organization, and at the start of the novel, she's at work and she just decides that she needs something to change. She doesn't know exactly what it is. So she gets in the car with her baby daughter and she drives from the San Francisco Bay Area up to a little town in Northern California where her family, her grandparents had a home. It was passed on to her mother, who passed it on to her when she died. And her uncle has been taking care of it. So she gets there and she gets to this little town, and it allows her time to reflect and time to think. It's interesting because she as a character is sort of boxed in by the fact that she doesn't have some of her technology with her. So this really becomes an instance for her to be what's the word I'm looking for? She really goes internal in sort of her reflection. Also allows her to really spend a lot of time with her daughter, who is a normal little girl running around, causing all sorts of havoc. Adorable. This book is really good. Here is what I will say. This book took me a lot longer to read than I thought it would, because what Lydia Kiesling does better than a lot of books I've read in a really long time, she captures the frenetic energy of being a mom and worrying and trying to figure out what you're going to do inside of, all of those instances where when you talk to your parents, or if you are a parent, where you your child bumps their head, and then you think that of course they're going to have a concussion and they're not going to remember who they are, and you go in one direction. Our main character has all sorts of instances like that with her daughter, but she also has all sorts of instances with that about her life. So sometimes the book gets you built up, and I was like, I could feel it. I could feel it in my chest, and I had to take a break. And I think that is a sign of fantastic writing, but it did make this a book that I could not fly through, because at times my chest was so tight that I was like, oh my gosh, I need to take a deep breath, which was fascinating because Daphne needed to take a deep breath. I really enjoyed this book. I don't know a lot of people that have read it, and I really think that you probably should, because I think it does something about the mom experience, the adult experience, the idea of finding out who you are within that sort of structure that is unique and different. And the writing, it really does put you sort of on this edge. It's really well done. I am super excited to see what Lydia does next. I think The Golden State was an amazing debut novel. And yeah, no, it's really, really good. And look, that's really a cool cover. I got this from, I want to say Green Apple Books, and it is signed by Lydia. So there you go. So that's The Golden State by Lydia Kiesling. Okay, what did I go to next? After all the frenetic energy of Daphne's story, I needed something a little bit more sort of low-key. So I read the totally adorable graphic novel, The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jenn Wang. I'm just going to show you the art first. We're going to start there. It is gorgeous. But this is really the story of a dressmaker who starts making dresses for a client. I'm not going to say much more than that, but there are surprises, there are twists, there are turns. It's about identity, it's about being accepted, it's about learning who you are and learning how to deal with who you are. And what this book does amazingly well is that it's set in a time period where some of the things that are discussed are at a juxtaposition with sort of societal norms in such a drastic way that the conversation sort of has to hit you. Never feels heavy-handed, is totally lovely. It is just a really feel-good little book, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the art. I flew through it. I read it in like 2 hours. Yeah, I really loved it. So if you like just a really feel-good graphic novel, I highly recommend The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jenn Wang. And look at how cute they are. Look at how cute that picture is. Totally adorable. Okay, so the next book I read is a little science fiction for you. I've got a little bit of everything here. And that was Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. This is a sci-fi novel that came out a few years ago. It's the first in a trilogy, and maybe some of you have read them all. I loved it. It is so good. This is a story of a woman who, as a young girl, she was riding her bike, she fell in a hole, and she fell into a giant metal hand. Later in life, we find out that that metal hand is part of a robot that is pieces are being discovered worldwide, and she is now the scientist in charge of the project to put the robot together. What I loved about this book is it's not told in letters, so it's not epistolary. It's told in interviews. I almost said it was epistolary. That's not right. It's told in interviews from different people that are involved in the project, and you have sort of this guy who is interviewing all of them that has sort of this omniscient viewpoint, but is also really unreliable. And I was on the edge of my seat. I thought it was fun. I thought it was entertaining. I really enjoyed it. And I really want to know where it goes next. So I'm super excited to get my hands on the second book in the series and the third book in the series. If you like sci-fi that is not too overly science fiction-y, you know what I mean? Sometimes I read sci-fi and they're so technical and so into the science realm that I'm just not smart enough for that. This book does enough to keep you grounded and is there for you. But if you are a sci-fi junkie, you will still enjoy sort of the premise and the idea. I really liked Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. It was awesome, and I cannot wait to read the rest of them. So then I decided, you know what, Russell? You read some science fiction, so it's time to read some fantasy. And I went on to The Girl in the Tower by Katherine Arden, which is the second book in her The Winter Night trilogy. The third book in this comes out, I want to say, in a couple days, and I will be buying it. It is so good. This is the story of Vasila. I'm saying her name wrong, and I'm really sorry. My Russian is even worse than my English. This is the story of a young girl. In the first book in this series, The Bearer and the Nightingale, we are in a small, remote Russian town where she is fighting against sort of this demon that comes into power. It comes into power because there's this fight going on between Christianity and the religion of the people in the, I'm going to call it pagan religion. I'm not sure that that's exactly the right word. But what it does is it's sort of, she is considered a witch. She can see these spirits. She knows how to take care of them. And she is there to defend sort of her town against this evil. She, at that point, meets a character that sort of is the Winter Knight, which he's fascinating. But I can't tell you much more because I don't want to ruin book one and I don't want to ruin book two. But I will say book one was fantastic. Book two was better. I loved the story. There is this whole sort of issue with like her pretending to be someone she's not so she can get into certain situations, and I thought that was really good. I really love this. I love Katherine Arden's writing. I was really sort of brought into the world of Moscow and the cold. She has a way of just making you feel cold. There's a lot of cold in this book, and I'm really excited for book three. It comes out in a couple weeks and I will be in line to buy it immediately. So this is The Girl in the Tower by Katherine Arden. It is book two in the Winter Night trilogy. If you haven't read The Bear and the Nightingale, please do it. Then get this one. They are available They're so good, so good. Okay, now what I did for the last half of the month is I only read books that were coming out in 2019. So all of these 4 books, the last 4 books that I read this month, are all coming out next year. Tomorrow. No, not tomorrow, but they are coming out in 2019. So I'm going to do a whole video where I review them all in more detail, but I want to tell you about them now so that you can jump on them. And I'm going to tell you about today in the order I read them. In my next video where I go into more detail, I'll actually tell you about them in the order that they come out. The first one I read was the fantastic If Then by Kate Hope Day. This is being billed as a sci-fi novel. Now, the reason this is being billed as a sci-fi novel is because the characters in this book have these moments where they see alternate realities and different things play out. The world differently than the world that they are living in currently. And it sort of allows them to make different choices. What this book is about relationships and choices. What if you knew something could possibly happen? What decisions would you make? How would you make them? Some make them and it makes them happier. Some make them and it drives them sort of to a point of absurdity. Some make them and it makes them grow up. What she does brilliantly in this book is that sometimes it's not till about halfway through that you realize you're seeing a lot of different perspectives. That's all I will say. And you will sit there and you'll go, oh, wait a minute, where am I? Brilliantly done. The only thing I will say is I wish this book was a little bit longer. There are some characters that I wanted more from. And that may be just me. That's just me being selfish. This was a fantastic read. I absolutely loved it. It has already been optioned, I want to say either for a TV show or a movie, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say it's for a TV show. Kate lives in Oregon, and I almost tried to get a hold of her because I would love to meet her while I was in Eugene, Springfield. But I loved this book, and I want you guys to read it because I want to talk to you about it. I think it has a lot of conversation topics. So if you run a book club, this may be a great book to have in that book club because of what people do allows for a lot of conversation. So I really want to thank Random House and Andrea, who sent me this copy of this book, and for Kate for making sure that it got to me. So that's If Then by Kate Hope Day, and this comes out March 12th, 2019. Again, I'm going to do a video where I talk about all of these, much more detail coming up probably in the next week, so you won't have to wait long. The next book I read is a mystery, and I don't read a lot of mysteries, you guys, so I have a lot to say about this in my full review, but this is The Winter's Sister by Megan Collins. I really enjoyed this as well. So this is the story of two sisters. We have Persephone and Sylvie. Persephone, at the very beginning of the book, is the older sister, and she is killed. Her body is found. And that murder is never solved. And we are sort of 18 years later. Sylvia is a tattoo artist, and she has to return home to take care of her mother who has cancer, esophagus cancer. And their relationship, ever since her sister died, has been sort of on the outs. This book is one, of course, it's about the murder mystery. That part of it, to me, is straightforward. What this is really about is dynamics and family, and there's a theme here, as you can see. Both the writers, both Kate Hope Day and Megan Collins, do a brilliant job of taking sort of something that is straightforward and then making it complex by dealing with sort of the family dynamic. The relationship between Sylvia and her mother, and also the relationship, as we learn in flashback, between Sylvia and Persephone, is so well thought out and so well put together. I really enjoyed this book. Again, I'll talk about it more with a little bit more detail and a critical eye. I will say I think that the murder itself is a little bit straightforward. I don't think if you're a person who reads a lot of murder mysteries that you'll be surprised, but I don't think you'll see it coming. How does that sound? I loved it. I was on the edge of my seat. I flipped through it. I read it really quickly, but I was really enthralled in this book. So this is The Winter Sisters by Megan Collins. I want to thank Touchstone for getting me a copy of this. And this comes out on February 5th, so it's right around the corner, actually. So that's really good. The next book I read is the one... Oh, you guys. Okay, so this is the Atlas of Reds and Blues by Devi S. Laskar. This comes out in February 5th as well from Counterpoint Press. So thank you, Counterpoint, for sending this to me. This book is so thought-provoking. This one could definitely be a book that you're going to want to read with other people. This is the story of our main character. Her name is Mother. We learn at the very beginning of the book that she and her family have moved sort of from interior Atlanta to the suburbs. They are, they are Bengali, I want to say. I want to just make sure that I'm saying that right. I'm 99.9% sure. Yes, they are Bengali. And they go into a part of Atlanta where they have to deal with racism. Now, at the very beginning of the book, you find that Mother is laying on the ground. Some sort of home invasion by the cops has gone on, and something has happened to her. This book is told sort of in these flashpoints. Some of the chapters are very short, some of them are longer, but you learn about how she got to America and who she is. You learn about her relationship with her husband, who is very gone a lot of the time and maybe is too placating to society. You learn about her daughters and what they have to deal with. You learn about what she has to deal with. And then you'll flash back to when she was young, her family, her parents. Devi is a poet. I shouldn't say was a poet, is a poet. And that is so evident in her writing style. So if you like things that are stylistically different, the book is chopped up. You'll have to put the pieces together. And when you have those aha moments, it's totally worth it. If you love beautiful language, if you love someone who is writing from a poet's perspective, and I know there are a lot of you out there, this book is going to be for you. It does tackle some really tough topics. Not everything goes smoothly. Your heart will be wrenched from your body. But it is beautifully written. And that's the Atlas of Reds and Blues by Devi S. Laskar. Again, this is out from Counterpoint on February 5th, 2019. Bigger review to come in a video to follow. Last but not least, and as you guys will see, oh, you know what? I have another book that I did not bring in here. But I will talk about it. I read The Ruin of Kings by Jenn Lyons. This also comes out in February of 2019. Sorry, the arc isn't very exciting to see. This is a epic fantasy. It's being so much buzz about this book. It's really good, you guys. This is the story of Kieran, and basically what you do is you have two stories. One is being told by Kieran himself. He's in a prison cell at the beginning of the book. He's telling the story of what happens after he is kidnapped from his life as a royal in his society and moving forward and everything that happens to him. Then there is this woman who is this shapeshifter who is telling the story of how he got there, his youth, why he was there, and how he was kidnapped. I don't want to say too much because this is a lot about, it's one of those, how do I say it? This story does a lot. Those two things come together and you learn about them in parallel. There's magic, there are houses, there's classes. He starts his life sort of as a peasant in working as a musician in a brothel, but he's also a thief. And then he sees something that sort of changes his whole entire world. He finds out, it's that sort of case of who he is really, which can be a little bit predictable, but she does something very unique and different with it, which I really enjoyed. There are amazing characters in this book, and I just really, really liked it. I really liked it. I was totally involved. I'm so sad that I've read it before it came out, and now I have to wait for the second book to come out. It doesn't do, so you know me, I don't read a ton of epic fantasy. It didn't get me lost in world building, which you know I don't like. I don't like to be so lost in it that I feel like the story's lost. I got the world, but I always was on a journey. Also, I really liked the fact that every character that I met had its own sense of reality and interesting backstory, and enough was done to keep me entertained. Yeah, I really, really liked The Ruin of Kings. I think you guys, oh, that's upside down. The Ruin of Kings by Jenn Lyons. I highly recommend it. It comes out from Tor Books. Thank you, Tor, for sending this to me in February of 2019. The last book that I read this year, I'll put a picture up here for you, is West by Carys Davies. This is a thin little book. I apologize, I left it in the other room, so I'm going to insert a picture. This is the story of a man who reads an article. I want to say it's probably late 1800s, early 1900s, or maybe even earlier. There's no time set, but basically he reads an article in a newspaper where there's been a discovery of dinosaur bones in Kentucky, and he goes on a journey, leaving his daughter behind in order to find these animals that he thinks exists somewhere in the undiscovered part of the United States. This is some of the most beautiful writing about nature that I have ever read in my entire life. The story is compelling. He meets a Native American boy who helps lead him. That's interesting. His daughter is at home pining away for her father. That part is well done. Everything about this book is so good. It is this tiny. It's like 200 pages, if that, but it packs a wallop of a punch. I loved it. And if I had not finished it yesterday night after I'd already filmed my 2018 Best Books of, West by Carys Davies would have been on that list. That's what I get for doing it a day early. So this is a very long video, so I apologize. I had a lot to say and I didn't read that many books. But as always, if you are a return subscriber, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you are new to my channel, I hope a lot of these books wind up on your TBR and that you love them all as much as I do. As always, I always want to wish you happy reading, and in this time, a happy new year. Hope you like the new addition to the Ink and Paper blog video scene here. And I will talk to you guys very soon. I will be back tomorrow to talk about 2018, all of my reading, and my 2019 goals. As always, I'll talk to you later. Bye!